3 years ago, I bought this C5 Corvette for $16,500. At the time, I thought I was buying a fun weekend toy, but what I didn't realize is that I was actually buying a second job, a mechanical education, a financial mistake, and some of the best memories of my entire life. And today, I have spent almost $50,000 modifying this car. And after taking it on multiple cross-country hot rod power tour road trips, I finally have enough seat time to answer the question, was any of this truly even worth it? Somewhere along the journey, this stopped being a Corvette build, and it became something that truly changed my life. Welcome back to Performance on Wheels. My name is Austin, and if you like Corvettes, road trips, questionable financial decisions, and cars that occasionally fight back, hit that subscribe button. Now let's see if spending 50 grand on a C5 was genius or a complete disaster. Now, before we talk about modifications, I need to talk about how this whole project even started. When I bought this Corvette, it was technically a one-owner clean title car, and the story was it got hit by a deer, and honestly, the deer won. The driver's door had a hole in it, the fender had a hole in it, the bumper was cracked, the hood was damaged, the headlight cover was broken, the rocker panel was damaged. Essentially, every single panel on this side of the car had some type of damage on it. And when I bought the car, my plan was simple. Fix the parts, drive the car, and just enjoy it. And then Marketplace happened, and if you know anything about owning a project car, you already know where this is going. One day I found a used carbon fiber wide body kit, really cheap. Then I found a set of C7 Z06 C7R wheels, also really cheap. So naturally, instead of buying factory replacement parts like a responsible adult, I went and bought a bunch of aftermarket parts from dudes on Marketplace like 10 hours away from my house. And honestly, that one 10-hour road trip completely ruined my financial future, because every time I opened Marketplace after that, another deal popped up. Carbon fiber hood, 300 bucks, bought it. Carbon front fenders, 300 bucks, had to buy those too. It got to the point where it was cheaper to fix this car with carbon panels than it was to fix it with OEM Corvette parts. So the build snowballed, and by snowballed, I mean it got completely out of control, but somehow it just all worked. The wide body transformed the entire car, the wheels completely changed the stance, and those C7R wheels also accidentally started the yellow theme that is on the entire car. I was not trying or even planning to build a black and yellow car. In fact, I wasn't even trying to build anything, if you remember right, because the plan was just to fix it and drive it. Remember? The plan with the yellow accents on the wheels just worked so well with the black paint and the carbon that it just started to show up everywhere. This car basically built itself one Marketplace deal at a time. Now let's talk about the fitment, and we're not talking about the wheels. And we're talking about fitment with body panels, all of these aftermarket panels, because if you know anything about C5s, I have seen over 100 of them now with aftermarket front fenders, hoods, back fenders, and I have yet to see a single one of them that has decent fitment. None of them fit perfectly. Not mine, not yours, not the guy in the comments, nobody's. I've accepted the fact that every aftermarket panel has some kind of issue if you look close enough. A gap, a corner, an edge, something, and honestly, I've made peace with it. Because from just 5 feet away, this thing looks pretty incredible. Now, where I wouldn't change anything is the lighting. These Night Drive TV sleepy eye headlights, the Vette lights, tail lights, and running lights is a combination that cannot be matched. And at night, this thing does not look anything like a 20-year-old Corvette anymore. It looks special. And honestly, that ended up being what this whole build was all about. Going from something that was damaged and broken to being something that people would just stop, look at, and smile at. Now, the exterior is what people see, but the interior is what you actually live with. And after putting over 40,000 miles on this car the last 3 years, I really started to appreciate it. When I bought the Corvette, the interior wasn't terrible, but it definitely wasn't great. I'm pretty sure the previous owner was about 300 pounds because the seat bolsters were completely flattened, the steering wheel was sticky, the seats were worn out, and everything just felt old. A good cleaning helped a whole lot, but the seats, they just had to go. So naturally, I did what every financially responsible Corvette owner does, and I bought the cheapest Amazon racing seats that there was to offer. About $200, and let me tell you, the seats were amazing. For about 5 minutes, the reality ended up sitting in, the quality wasn't great, the comfort wasn't great, and eventually they literally broke. Not metaphorically, they actually broke. The seat snapped in half. And looking back, I'm probably actually really lucky that we never got in a crash with these, because I probably wouldn't be here to tell the tale. So that became another lesson. Sometimes buying cheap isn't always buying smart. So I started thinking, rather than just buying the cheapest thing I can possibly find, what will actually make this build better? So that's when I reached out to Corbeau, and after multiple revisions and a lot of back and forth, we landed on this custom seat design, and honestly, they completely transformed the car. They're comfortable, they're supportive, they look incredible, and after spending days at a time behind the wheel, I can can confidently say they're one of the best modifications that I've ever made. Then I reached out to Zen Carbon Fiber and I had a steering wheel that was built to match, and suddenly the interior started to feel intentional. Everything worked together, matched, and felt premium. But then something completely changed. I started to work with Night Drive TV to install the most innovative piece of technology that has been made for the C5 to date, the Maxton. And I know that sounds dramatic, but you need to hear me out. This car is over 20 years old now, and somehow it now feels more modern than some brand new vehicles that I've driven. The screen is lightning fast, it never lags, the maps work perfectly, music is effortless, everything just works. And now after taking the car on a cross-country road trip, thousands of miles, I can confidently say this is one of the best modifications that I've ever done to this car. Now all of a sudden I had seats, I had a screen, I had a steering wheel, so I added some color, some safety, and some race car vibes. I picked up a harness bar from Landon Norris on Etsy, added harnesses, added a fire extinguisher, and everything finally started coming together. For the first time, the interior felt truly complete, and here's the crazy part, it actually might be my favorite part of the entire build now. And it's simply because every mile that happens in this car happens right here. Nobody at a gas station has ever once complimented your brand new wheel bearings, or hey, did you get a new ignition lock cylinder in there? Or your ABS module is looking really nice today. And honestly, it's probably for the best because this chapter is just about the boring stuff. This is the stuff that doesn't get views, it doesn't get likes, it doesn't get shared, but it's the stuff that truly taught me the most on this car. Whether it's ignition lock cylinders, cooling systems, alternators, water pumps, I have done everything and probably 80 things more on this car, and it has taught me so much about vehicles. And then there's this thing. Pull key, wait 10 seconds. That stupid message. I'm sure if you're a C5 Corvette owner, you probably just rolled your eyes at me. I've bought and replaced the ignition lock cylinder. I've bought and put in an LMC5 module, 2 of them now, actually. I have also tried to rebuild the ABS module by soldering all of the components in there, and every single freaking time I try to turn the car on, it's 2026 and there are still people arguing about the true solution to this stupid code. Now let's swipe the pull key, wait 10 seconds thing aside and talk about all of the basic maintenance and crap like that I've done on this. Now a lot of people are just going to be saying, that just sounds terrible, it sounds horrible, why would you ever want to own one of these cars? But quite honestly, they're the things that have made me appreciate owning this car so much because I have gained so much mechanical knowledge because I've owned this vehicle. I mean, I have never even pulled an intake manifold off before owning this car. Now I can do this one in an hour. I can do this water pump in 20 minutes. Heck, I can drop the whole torque tube out of this thing in like 3-4 hours. I am so confident and I have learned so much working on this car that I'm like the in-town mechanic now for any of my family. And there's just so much knowledge to be had and learned on this vehicle. And it's such a great platform to learn on. I am so thankful for this car and the things that have broken on it because of what they have taught me in the entire car community. Now, I have learned so much on this car, I could probably do an engine swap blindfolded. Well, maybe not blindfolded, but definitely significantly faster than I used to be able to do it. But the most important part about this car and things breaking on this car is it's not a Ferrari, it's not a McLaren, it's practically a Silverado in a sports car, which makes parts really, really cheap, affordable. You can run down to your parts store and grab pretty much anything. There's videos out there all over the place, and it's just all such a great point to start learning to work on wrenching. I love everything about working and wrenching on these cars, and they are rock solid reliable. Things break here and there on any and everything, especially something that's 20 years old. And I couldn't be more thankful that this is the car that I chose from 20 years ago. Now this is the part of the car that gets everybody in trouble, whether that's with your finances or with your local officers. Now when I bought this car, it had nothing more than this Billy Boat axle-back exhaust on it. And if I would have left it alone, I probably would have ended up being perfectly happy, but lo and behold, I opened up eBay and there it was, a great deal, over half off on Cook's long tube headers and a high flow Cat X pipe. So I pretty much told myself, well, I'd probably be stupid not to buy it. So I bought them, I installed them, and just like that, the performance rabbit hole officially began. Because once you add one power modification, you immediately start thinking of the next one. And not a whole lot longer later, I ended up ordering a BTR Stage 3 cam kit, as well as full titanium valve train. I ended up ordering a kit to rebuild the torque tube, a McLeod 1000 horsepower twin disc clutch, an RPM Stage 4 or 5, I don't remember which one, differential with a 392 rear ratio, and yeah, she was ready to rip. And honestly, I regret Absolutely none of it. The way that it sounds, the way that it chops. The way that it pulls through the rev range, the way it gets out of the hole with that rear end. I am so happy with the modifications that I chose to do on this car. I would do all of those again in a heartbeat because they completely transformed the driving experience and really woke up this LS6. And I did do all of it myself, and I was very pleased with it. However, this last winter, I did decide to rebuild the torque tube, and I'm not going to lie, the C-clips on that thing about sent me into a mental institution, and if you've ever rebuilt one yourself, you're gonna know exactly what the heck I'm talking about. But I have to admit, after I put it all back together and drove it down the road, it just felt so rewarding knowing that I built this car. I took all of this stuff apart, put it back together, and I drove this down the road. Heck, I drove it fast and it stayed together, which is just mind-blowing to me. But one thing I'll admit that I never really got into was chasing those horsepower numbers. I mean, I see guys out there spending $1,500 bucks, $2,000 on intake manifolds to make another 20 to 30 horsepower, and it just wasn't all that worth it to me. It's just a lot of money for just a little bit bigger number. But if I could do it again, I would leave it the way that it was still because I'm just so happy with the power level that the car has. Pretty much anywhere down low, you can just put the pedal down and just barely lose the back end. It's very easy to control and it goes around corners so well, which we have to talk about soon with that suspension. But for those that are curious about a number, it's around 480 to 500 wheel horsepower is what this car is estimated to make based on what I've looked up online with others that have the same modifications. And well, I'll be honest, I'm probably going to leave the car the exact same way it is until something happens to the engine, which in that case, I'll probably end up doing an LS3 or an LS7. However, there is one other thing that we could potentially do. I have a street legal go-kart behind me right now, and there is a C5 Corvette Pro Charger on that go-kart. And I'll admit, the go-kart's a little bit rowdy with the 600 plus horsepower that it has. So we could potentially take the Pro Charger off of the go-kart and put it on this. It's just an option. Let me know what you guys think. Or should I just leave it and wait till it blows up? Now, surprisingly, these couple of modifications have changed the car more than, quite honestly, anything else. More than the cam, more than the clutch, more than the interior. And that's the suspension and the brakes. When I bought the car, it was still running the factory FE4 suspension from the C5 Z06, and honestly, for a 20-year-old setup, it was pretty impressive. The car cornered well, the ride height looked good thanks to lowering bolts, and for years, I didn't have any major complaints. Until I started driving it more and more and more, and after putting tens of thousands of miles in this car, I started to notice things that annoyed me. The biggest one was bump steer. You'd hit a bump with one side of the car, and the whole thing wanted to react. It was rough on highways, it always felt busy, never dangerous, just busy. So eventually, I reached out to QA1, and we worked together on a full coilover conversion, and honestly, I was not prepared for how much this would change the car. This wasn't one of those modifications where you convince yourself that it feels better because you spent money on it. It was immediately obvious. The way the car now handles bumps, the way that it settles into corners, the way that it reacts to inputs, and everything feels more controlled, more predictable, more refined, and the craziest part, it somehow is more comfortable and more capable at the same time, which is really impossible to think about until you drive it. But the one thing that I did notice with the QA1 suspension is the car reacts to having weight in it very differently than it did with the leaf spring. So for example, on the big road trip that we just went on, I had to significantly jack up the rear end. That way all of the weight that we had from our luggage and stuff in the trunk didn't continuously bottom the car out. And towards the end of the trip, it was starting to bottom itself out because we bought some shirts along the trip and stuff like that. So it definitely does not have the same weight load that the leaf springs could handle. So since we're talking about things that dramatically change the way that this car performs, drives, and handles, we need to talk about the ATS Brake Brembo swap as well. Paired with C6 Z06 front rotors, and honestly, the setup is just ridiculous for the money. Around $800 for the full kit, and it completely changed the way that the front end feels under braking. The initial bite is stronger, the pedal feels way more confident, and you're driving the car aggressively, coming into a corner hot, the car scrubs speed so much faster than it did before. It doesn't just stop faster, it actually inspires a lot of confidence in driving that I just didn't have previously. It's just funny to me that when people are building Corvettes, their first thought initially goes towards horsepower. But after building this car and driving this car and giving it another 100 horsepower over stock, my favorite modifications have been suspension and interior related over the power. The only thing I enjoy about the engine is the sound. It's not the power, it's the sound that the car makes and then the way that it handles and feels, because it's just all about the joy of driving. After spending nearly $50,000 on this C5 Corvette, I'll admit, I feel like I'm entitled to have some opinions on what I would and wouldn't do again, so here's my list. If I were to go out and buy a C5 Corvette again tomorrow, the very first thing that I would do is this MGW short throw shifter. Now, this greatly increases the driver feel. It makes the gears just so much shorter. It gives so much more engagement, and it's very notchy. It just feels great in the hand. Absolutely love this modification. Now on to what I wouldn't do, and that would be lowering bolts. I would just rock the factory bolts as low as they can go, because lowering bolts just take away a lot from the factory suspension in this car. They ultimately compress the factory shocks and allow them not to work properly from the factory, and it just makes the ride so unbearably harsh. If I could do this again, I would just rock the factory bolts and not even worry about trying to put aftermarket ones in and lower this thing even more. Now the QA1 setup completely solved that problem if you're wanting to go low. So if you want an ultra low car, either go with bags or go with a coilover setup, but the coilover setup is going to give you a better performance feel behind the wheel. Now on to number 2 of the things that I would absolutely buy. The second thing I would buy if I were to go purchase one of these again would be headers and an X pipe. Get rid of that factory H pipe for that boaty sound and get an X pipe in there and some headers. Completely wakes up how these cars sound under load and makes them dramatically more fun to drive from a sound standpoint. Next thing I would absolutely not do again would be aftermarket front fenders. The factory front fender fitment is fantastic, and aftermarket ones are not. And quite honestly, it doesn't really do anything. The carbon panels do not shed any weight over the factory fiberglass ones, so it just comes down to being for looks. And if my fender didn't have damage on it, I never would have put these on, mainly just because of how long they took to fit, and the fitment is just not great after the fact. Now the back ones I will deal with the fitment with, because of being able to fit that wider tire back there and the wider look from the rear. The car looks so good, but the front ones I just don't find value in. Quite honestly, exact same boat with aftermarket hoods as well. Most of them I've seen, you can't just shut like the factory hood either. You have to come over and kind of press them in to lock in properly. Once again, not common that you see them line up perfectly. I have never seen one that lines up perfect. The only reason that I truly think that you would need an aftermarket hood is if you do a top-mounted supercharger and you truly need a bulge on the top of the hood. But other than that, just rock the factory hood. Now, the next thing that I absolutely love and I would recommend to anyone is do all aftermarket lights. Tail lights, side markers, running lights, headlights. There's a few different options out there. I personally love the Night Drive TV ones, like I mentioned. They just modernize the look of this car so much. They make it easier to drive at night with actually having good lights that project the road well. It looks so good with all the LED designs, and I love the look of the lights. Completely transformed the way that these cars look. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to today. Way too many late nights, almost $50,000, tons of Facebook Marketplace finds. I'm going to confidently say that the build is complete. Now, let's be honest, a build is never truly complete. Some things might change down the line, but this is the state that the car is in that I'm the most happy with. I don't think it can get much better than it currently is, just for the value proposition that this car still holds. Yes, there's a lot of money into this car at this point, but that's across 3 years. That's including the purchase price. That's including maintenance. That's including every single little thing that has happened to this car and every part that is involved with it. There is a lot of money invested into this vehicle, and I would 100% do it again, because you can't pay $50,000 and not learn something out of what I've done in this car. I mean, I have learned and gained so much knowledge. I have an incredible driving machine that I'd trust to drive me anywhere across the country, and I love this vehicle. Now, the real question is do you guys love it as well? Thank you guys so much for joining today here on Performance on Wheels. Greatly enjoyed walking you through the finished build of the C5 Corvette Z06. So many videos have been put out on this car, and I am so excited to share that this might be one of the last official build ones. Son of a...